Hello, and welcome to this week's episode about Gold Rush. Today, we are going to be deep diving the song. If you have not yet listened to our show and tell on aestheticism, that's what we discussed last week. I highly recommend you go back and listen. Super fun conversation. But one of the songs that we brought up there was Gold Rush, and there's obviously a ton to dig into with this. So I'm excited to be doing the deep dive today. I want to make a quick plug that we talk about a lot of literary references, and we're going to be referencing them all in our show notes. If you're not subscribed to our Substack, go do that. And if you're looking for some additional reading, always please check out our bookshop. Now, before we jump in, sorry.
You're just excited. You're just thinking about all the books you're going to read.
I'm like, what am I saying? I'm going to hand it over to Jen to ground us in our rhetorical triangles so that she can shape our discussion today.
I am so excited for this one. I think some of the ones we've done recently have been super fun, but a little bit like we kind of all ended in the same place. And I think we might end in different places here.
You love it when we disagree and end up at different places. You just love a good...
Something I always kind of struggled with as a teacher was trying to communicate to people. I've said this before. There are wrong answers, but there's very rarely one right answer in anything with literature. It's not math. It's, so it's so fun to me when there's examples of we all have different but valid interpretations because we can support our points with evidence. So I just think it's fun, and it's a good example of how art means different things to different people, and it's something that's worth discussing and worth engaging in because it's not always straightforward, and that's a fun thing. So the way we do it is we do the rhetorical triangle, so trying to figure out who is the speaker, who do we think they're talking to, and then overall, what was the purpose of this text? And that's what we will end with is what do we all think the purpose is, and hopefully we all disagree. Maybe yelling will occur. One can hope. We'll see where the conversation goes. So we can start with just kind of what's the evidence we have about who's the speaker of this song.
Yeah, I think I'll start. This song, like so many of the other Taylor Swift songs, has two speakers. There's an I and a you. And sorry, I'm going to back up before we get too far into this. I said this in our show and tell, but the writers for the song is Taylor Swift and Jack Antonoff, and it was written in released in 2020 on Evermore, track 3. Like so many of her songs, there's an I and a you, two characters. There's no real gender identified as far as I can tell. All we know is that the person that the speaker is talking about is beautiful.
Yeah, I think, and we've said this before, we'll probably default to she as the speaker because we hear Taylor's female voice singing it. But yeah, it definitely can be anyone. I think I was even trying to see, like, is there any clue that even if we just go like really stereotypical gender roles, which we shouldn't, but even if we were, the only thing we really get is like their hair falls into place like dominoes, and that could be literally anyone, like that's...
Yeah, they're beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, but that's not the speaker.
They have
the speaker
hair.
is talking about someone who is beautiful, who has hair that falls into place, and the speaker is someone who is, experiencing this flush. Can we start by defining a gold rush? Because
yes,
I think that might help us.
I think it's really important to start there because the thing that I was actually going to say is that the speaker is clearly very popular and very beloved by all, or like one of the key things. The speaker or
the person that she's speaking
about?
Sorry,
not the person she's speaking about. One of the things that's very, very obvious throughout this song is that the speaker is not the only one that appreciates the subject of the song because of the comparison to a gold rush, which is also the name of the song. So gold rush was a movement that happened in the United States between 1840 and 18. It was a mad dash to the West Coast, to California, where there were murmurings and mumblings of gold discovery. Pretty significant for a lot of reasons. Yes, people went for gold. There was an American-Mexican war happening around that same time that involved disputes over territory. And so it was very convenient that a ton of American colonists essentially happened to be rushing to that area geographically at the time. Very convenient. It was definitely such a big rush that the native populations on the West Coast, of which there were many, were very, very significantly impacted. I think historically, when we're taught about the gold rush in American history, I think it's introduced very early on in school when kids are younger. And it's very like this, like, go wild, wild west. We all used to read the Laura Ingalls Wilder books of like this westward pioneering migrations. It was almost a little glamorized, at least in my mind, when I was learning about
Oregon
it.
Trail.
I was just going to say, do you guys play Oregon Trail?
Absolutely.
I did not, but I'm familiar. Yeah.
Oh my God.
I don't know how
there were
I
only
escaped
2
that one.
computer games on our elementary school computers. It was Oregon Trail and then this like frog dissecting game on like the early
Oregon
Apple.
Trail
And then there was typing. There was a typing game. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog.
That's what I played because I'm a nerd.
So 3. There were 3 games.
Go die of dysentery. Be cool like the rest of us. I actually think I'll try to find it. I will try to find it and put it in the show notes. Like several years ago, my sister and I found a website that you could just play the regular Oregon Trail on. It was just a website that just hosted the game for free.
We had a card game at work.
Because it was also a board game, right? I think.
Probably.
I don't know. Anyway, okay. Oregon Trail is probably what I know of the Gold Rush and
right.
West.
So as I say, it was kind of like an innocuous.
Sorry. Now I'm just talking about all the early 90s things where I learned about
but I
the
think
westward
that's what
migration.
I'm saying is that it does kind of validate what I'm saying, which is it's taught as like this kind of game or innocuous thing. You don't really focus on a lot of the negative side effects other than the dysentery, which was obviously awful. But as an adult, I think, and maybe more recently with more conversations around like what has happened to the Native people or the kind of larger effects.
That Columbus didn't discover America. Yeah.
It was overwhelmingly a negative thing for the natives who were living there, but even the people who went along the gold rush at that point, there were people of all social classes that were going for various means. And largely these kind of things are like a poor man's tax. Like it was one of the, like the only people who would go looking for gold to make it big largely were people who had nothing. And so anyways, we don't need to go into the whole thing that was a gold rush, but I think it's important to have some historical context because the line is, I don't like a gold rush. And I think there's a lot of reasons to not like a gold rush. Mainly the emotion that she's focusing on here is that you don't want to be a part of this chaos movement where everybody is going towards this one thing. The speaker is better than that and is trying to resist it, even though the temptation is very much there.
Well, what I think is really interesting too, so I read a quarter of a book before the library took it back because it was an ebook rental. So I can recommend.
You know what you do though? Sorry.
The first 25%.
You turn on airplane mode.
Yes. Yeah, I know. I just forgot. But it's a good tip. So it's called Empty Mansions. It's by Belle Dedman and Paul Clark Newell. And it's about the Clarks, which were like one of the wealthiest families that we don't hear about. They were like as wealthy as like the Vanderbilts and Rockefellers and other people. And it's their story, which it was just kind of interesting. It's just a story that is missing from American history. But the like main guy, one of the ways he really made his fortune is he originally did do the gold rush, but then he realized this isn't going to work out. But these fools essentially are all stuck here, starving. So he started riding his horse, taking a wagon, whatever. He basically started transporting food and selling it to the miners. And that's where the money was to be made, was supporting this newfound economy, essentially, that was overnight appeared.
Interesting.
And I thought that was interesting. I was thinking about that with this song of this person is opting out of the gold rush. And it's interesting. Yes, we don't really get into Taylor's personal life and she dates, she does whatever, but the idea that there's this concept of falling in love, but opting out of it, but profiting from everyone who wants to be a part of it. I started kind of feeling like I don't exactly have words for it, but I feel like there's layers to she's opting out of the gold rush, but she's still writing a song. She's capitalizing on this experience, even though she is not the one pursuing the gold herself, if that makes sense. And that was actually where success was found.
I get the sense from this song that she knows what this feeling of falling in love is like and sees that everybody else is also falling in love with this person. So to your point, Jen, she's like, I'm going to opt out because here are all of the things that I know are going to happen if I do. So it's like she's been here before. I think I've seen this film before and she didn't like the ending, but here's how this plays out. And I love the idea when you bring in the history of the gold rush and what it means and why this metaphor works here, because gold is something that everybody wants, everybody was rushing towards, but actually the experience, whether you were, the natives who lived there before or the mass of people who are going to capitalize on this experience, it was not pleasant.
To me, it's like don't be stupid about it or don't be desperate. Like, I think there was also this sense of a lot of the people that went and rushed for gold they went in knowing nothing about what they were getting into. They were actually
like
really naive.
Didn't we talk about Bitcoin as like the modern gold rush?
Yeah.
Like you have no idea what you're doing, but you're like, oh, quick money, let me do this.
It's like, I don't know anything about mining or what it entails or how far the gold even is. Like, I don't even know how far the West Coast is. Let's just pack our wagons and go. And it was a level of desperation for many people that they could justify it because their current living conditions were so awful that they needed that. They had absolutely nothing to lose by just packing their bags and going. And I think the speaker here is directly kind of, actually, I wouldn't say directly, I think indirectly kind of saying that like everyone is after this thing. I'm a step above this, or like, I don't want to be stupid about it. Like, I don't want to fall for it. I don't want to be that desperate and go along with this thing just because everyone's doing it. But at the same time, you can tell she's tempted. You can tell she appreciates all the same things that everybody does, but she's trying to be like, I don't like a gold rush. Like, there's got to be something to be wary of or be careful about or something to resist. There's got to be a downside to this, and I don't want to just go into this blindly or naively.
Something else about the speaker that I don't think is a definitive interpretation, but I do think the fact that she asks, what must it be like to grow up that beautiful, implies that the speaker either is not as beautiful as the other person or does not see themselves as that beautiful. And I think that there's something interesting in there too.
So that's really interesting because I definitely always interpreted that as the speaker is fully aware of how beautiful they are and everyone's always after them, because it's like, you said speaker.
Speaker,
So the speaker is, so if I'm looking at someone saying, man, what's it like to grow up that beautiful? I am asking a question because I don't know the answer, because I don't think I grew up to be as beautiful, you know.
But on the same time, the subject knows that they're beautiful.
Yes,
clearly.
I think the subject definitely knows.
Yeah.
Beautiful, but they have that contrarian shit. Like, they're not perfect.
Yeah.
Like, she paints this picture of perfection with your hair falling into place like dominoes, that everything lines up beautifully. But I call you out on your contrarian shit. So saying like, wait, I almost saw the flippancy and the hyperbole in what must it be like to grow up that beautiful with your hair falling into place like dominoes. Like, again, to your point, Monsi, around like the gold rush as being something everyone saw as like quick money, but didn't actually know anything about. You know, this person is perceived as beautiful and perfect, but like, if you knew anything about them, you'd know they've got this contrarian shit. But I also, to that point, like, sorry, this is where I think as I speak. I saw this I've always seen this whole song as she gets a flash of someone. She just sees someone and then spins this whole tale of what it would be like to be with them, and then what it would be like to fall out of love with them and just know that it's never going to happen. And that's it. Like, that is the gold rush. The gold rush is like just seeing the entire relationship that could happen in front of you and knowing it could never be.
So where my mind actually jumps is that personal story time. I had a friend growing up when I was in school who, like, every one of my friends had a crush on, like every single one of them. And to me, like, I understood why they had a crush on that person. I actually completely, like, this was one of my best friends. I totally like saw all the things. I was like, yeah, he is really crazy charming. Like, he is really all these things, and like totally saw it. Never wanted to date that person because I was like, as much as I agree with everything that everyone else sees, like, it's not really interesting if everybody else is into this person. And I think that is like one of those things that it's like the attitude that comes across in this song is like, I almost jump in. The waters are so inviting, but I don't like a gold rush. Like, I got it. Like, you're like almost like holding back. You're like, everybody's into this.
This song is about not wanting to date Aaron Samuels.
Yeah. It's
Mean
something
Girls.
I was thinking. Yes, Mean Girls.
For those who don't know who Aaron Samuels is, Mean Girls.
Then get out of our podcast. Stop list. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. My two cats were sitting on the couch when I walked in this morning. They both just looked at me, and I very much immediately heard, "You can't sit with us," in my head. So Mean Girls, stay over here. What I think is so cool about this song too, though, is the way it's written. Again, like you said, I think we all had that experience or had some sort of experience where we saw someone. I also had a friend in high school who was like class president, was very popular. He was actually dating one of my good friends, but like so many people were into him, and I was like,
and you almost know too much. You're like, I know the real you. Like,
you're not that interesting.
Yeah.
I was the one like helping him make stuff for his girlfriend who was my friend.
You're like,
and I was like,
hi.
You're doing your best, buddy.
My friend actually asked me once, he's like, all your friends like me. Like, why not you? It's like, I know too much. It's like, look at you. You're
Get
so
over
cocky.
yourself.
What must it be like like to grow up that beautiful? Like, you're a jerk.
Oh, that's so interesting. See, this is where I love how like personal experience colors perception of
how you
a song. Because to me, I was like, oh, this is about having a crush and just knowing like, it's never gonna happen. Like, you just see someone from afar, or like you see someone on Instagram, or this happened to me all the time when I would see a musical. I had the biggest crush on Adam Pascal when he played Radames in Aida. I was like 12, and I was like, oh my god, he's amazing. I mean, so like, but just this is the feeling of having a crush, but knowing that like, I mean, this is someone, a celebrity, or just someone who's more popular. It's just, it will never be, but here's the whole experience.
The reason I go in a little bit deeper than just a crush of like somebody who's like just will never be is because there's that at dinner parties won't call you out on your contrarian shit, and the coastal town we'll never see a love as pure. Yeah, but I think this person knows like a layer deeper, or maybe there's another layer of familiarity with this person.
Like, imagined your entire life with somebody that you didn't even know. You've been married a really long time, okay? All it takes is seeing someone on the subway and you're just like, oh, here's what our whole life would be like. I have no idea who you are, but here's the whole life we have together, and it could never be.
To bring up the celebrity thing, because it was written by two very famous people,
our boy Jack
and our boy Jack. And it is true, we get that from, it's so relatable to us. We all have stories, but it's also interesting. I was thinking about it just kind of from the author standpoint of when you're that famous and you want to date other people, you're likely going to end up dating famous people, and the stress of like having a crush on someone famous who like hordes of people like follow or into, or even like from the flip side of like, imagine being a person who has a very real crush on Taylor Swift and they'll like talk about a gold rush, like who
talk about,
you know, like
making a friendship bracelet on a podcast. We don't go into rumors, but imagine,
but that's an interesting, like it works on every level of like, or I like you said, you have a crush on famous people. I just thought that was really interesting the way this was written. It can be a celebrity, it can be someone you know, it can be someone you pass on the street. It's capturing that daydream.
I don't know that anybody ever, is there anybody, I hear what you're saying, because I think what you're saying is we look at this from a perception of seeing someone who is beyond our reach. That is, whether that's beauty or fame or something beyond our reach that it could never be. But how conceited and egotistical do you have to be to think that everybody is within your reach?
Well, so that's a great question.
Sorry, I'm going to add to that question and then you can answer. But do you think the other person thinks that everyone wants to be with them?
Yeah,
or is the speaker saying, because it's saying, the speaker is saying everybody wants you?
I think this is where I am challenging this viewpoint a little bit, because I think there's a few issues with the distant celebrity. Yeah. I think like some of the way that the lyrics are written, like the grow up that beautiful in particular, it's like, this is somebody who has always been popular or always been beautiful and maybe knows that. Like, we're saying that the subject probably is aware of their pull.
What was the actor who plays Neville Longbottom? He would like, did they know he was going to turn out that good looking?
No, but that's exactly my point. That's why I'm challenging the celebrity thing. I don't think it's a celebrity, because I think celebrities often are not the beautiful people they grow up to be. Yes, they're popular at some point eventually, but it's not like they've always been that way. Like Gold Rush is like, you have always had people after you.
Yeah, but I don't know. I think that you can, again, the way I read, listen, whatever you want to say to this song
Brad Pitt is a great example of somebody who has just always been good looking and knows it. And maybe he could be a celebrity that fits this mold, but I'm like, I don't think that like a Matt Lewis, for example, would be the person that fits this mold. Yeah, like, because he wasn't always.
I think that you can think of beauty beyond physical beauty. There are actors.
But I think this song in particular is calling out all the physical things. So
I don't know, everybody could want this person.
I'm going to break our rule and I'm going to say a name, and I'm sorry. But if someone ever came out and said this song was about Harry Styles, I'd be like, yeah, duh. Like the hordes of people following him around, that everybody wants you.
But she did go for that gold rush, so it can't be about him.
So I don't think the song is about him, but necessarily. But if you say that this concept of like, I learned, but the idea of everybody wanting them, wondering what it would like to be with them, growing up beautiful, like you get that with if growing up beautiful, you get that with like boy bands. You do have people like that. I guess my main point wasn't that it is someone famous, but it was saying that the intensity of this, if you're a famous person who was going to date someone else famous, the intensity of how this song would hit, the idea of everybody wants you is one thing when it's a popular person at your high school. The intensity of everybody wants you is different when you're Harry Styles.
The whole world
is of women celebrity. Follow you around.
I don't like necessarily disagree with that. I just think it's not necessarily any celebrity. It would have to be a very specific kind of celebrity even. We were talking about Harry Potter in the behind the scenes.
Which is why I brought up Neville.
I love the old Harry Potter fan in me. Would love to like think of songs in the Harry Potter context. And I was like, this is a Ginny Weasley song. Like this is like Harry is this celebrity, but also like a very normal boy, but everybody wants him.
For the gold rush.
At the end though, she resists it for years and she doesn't actually go for it. She doesn't go for it. Jody, she doesn't go for it until he is interested in her. And this is the difference between the movies and the books, and very important distinction. But she resists it because she's like, I don't want a gold rush. Like,
I don't want to
he's not interested in me. He's not interested in me. Everybody else is interested in him. I don't want to go there.
So the reason I like looking at this from either a celebrity perspective or something that is equally as out of reach is because it could never be. This whole song goes from the verb tense changes. Okay, so I'm gonna bring us back to some AP slang, I guess. I don't know. I see me padding across the wooden floors. I call you out on contrarian shit. The town we wandered around had never seen a love as pure as it. So we were the first time they saw a love this pure. And then it fades, because it could never be. And then it goes into, I can't dare to dream about you anymore. So it's over. I can't do this anymore. I won't call you out on your contrarian shit. This will never happen. We never found, we'll never see a love as pure as it. It never happened.
So I agree that it could never be, but I also think that the speaker has control on that, because the speaker is deciding
this could never be because I don't want this to be.
I don't want a gold rush.
Well,
yes,
I don't like a gold rush. Yeah. So
and that is a key difference here. It's not like there's some circumstance.
Hey, there are enough normies who shoot their shot with celebrities that it could be if you really wanted the gold rush.
I think that is a song that we have like Haunted. We analyzed Haunted in a different episode, and I think there's something happens where it can never be.
Yeah.
I don't think this is that kind of song. I think this is...
No, I don't want it to be.
I don't want it to be.
I am actively saying that here is what this would be like, and it could never be because I don't want a gold rush.
So
I almost jump in, but I don't.
Exactly. And that's where I wanted to take us next, is like the opening and closing with the siren kind of references. I think it's important because the whole concept of sirens it goes back to Greek mythology. It's this lure that initially seems really, really appealing, but then ends up being deadly once people get lured in or caught in that trap. And this entire song starts and ends with that reference of gleaming, twinkling, eyes like sinking ships.
Well, and she just starts with like just vocalizations, just singing like I can't sing, so I will not imitate
the siren song.
It's not a word, it's just that sound.
It's an alluring siren sound.
Yes.
It really is a siren call.
Again, initially sounds very beautiful, but there's something sinister or eerie about it. And there's this admission of water's so inviting, I almost jump in. But anyone who knows about Greek mythology knows that if you were to jump in, you get claimed by the sirens, you die.
You die. Eyes like sinking ships on waters so inviting, I almost jump in. She's specifically talking about this person's eyes that are like put down. So they're gleaming, twinkling eyes. So they like sinking ships on waters so inviting. So something that looks okay and lovely, even though you know it's already doomed. Like, you know this is going down, this is not good, but it looks really inviting. That's where I love the sirens connection there.
And there's exactly the resistance. But I don't like a gold rush. That's her, like, I almost imagine like somebody holding up their hand being like, stop.
I don't like a gold rush. I just had a flash of like, what if they did this song on Glee? Because, you know, they always like dramatized the songs really well. Mm-hmm. Like this would have been really good on Glee.
I have an out of left field potential interpretation.
You always do it. I love it. Please go.
So something that's been interesting, like, yes, we say like it could never be this song. This might be revealing about myself, and I'm very comfortable talking about this.
Welcome to the podcast.
You're right. But you get the lines like, I don't like that falling feels like flying till the bone crush. Talk just so much about how beautiful they are. Have beautiful eyes, all the stuff they could do because it could never be. And one of the things I was thinking that was so disappointing about the gold rush itself, and even the bone crush is so intense, is failure. If it's a gold rush and you go after it, that rejection is potentially the failure here. And then that's part of why I was asking what it must be. Part of why I mentioned the speaker asking, what must it be like to grow up that beautiful? And the person is saying everybody wants you. Do they all want that person? Or is this person, the speaker, projecting? I don't know. But we even talked about it briefly in the last episode. But this song to me, I was thinking was it reminded me a lot of me in like high school. I said this in a different episode at some point. I went to a private school. Everyone was like size 0. I wasn't. I am not the skinniest person. I was not the cutest person. And this is saying like this person is beautiful. They are the gold in the gold rush. And some of the song, we talk about that sinister thing. I think what I kind of came across was that what was sinister wasn't necessarily the other person, but to me, sometimes I hear it as what sinister is. I don't know if I can match that beauty. I don't know if I will be successful in the gold rush. That the bone crush is like rejection. It's pain. It's not going to work out. And that we even talk about this with Hey Steven, that she has some of these songs where she has a crush and never says anything. And I think we kind of have that here. And it could be just it could be any version of it. But some of this,
I think we brought up this song when we talked about Hey Steven.
Yeah, we might have. But that there's this interpretation of these, we talked about this with the aesthetic theory of like a beautiful person, but there are these standards of beauty. And she is saying this person fits them perfectly. Dominoes falling into place, wondering what it's like to grow up that beautiful. And it feels like there's a way to interpret it of your self-awareness as being like, I'm not going to match that. I am not engaging in this gold rush.
Yeah. And I want to see that because walk past quick brush, I see this like immediate, like that's all you get. That's the only interaction that this person will give you. Yeah. You get that quick brush and that's it.
Pulling on that thread a little bit more, like I love the line, my mind turns your life into folklore. So it's like this person is building up this person so much in their own mind that it's literally turning it into the thing that stories are made of. And she's like, I can't dare to dream about you anymore because it's like been blown up so much in her head that it's like saying that I don't like a gold rush could almost just be like her own way of justifying it and being like, well, I don't like a gold rush, so I'm going to stay clear. But it is really like more
fear of rejection, fear of failure.
Yeah.
I'm going to turn you down before you can turn me down.
Yep.
Yes.
Exactly. Like I won't even go there because it's too much. And all I can have is this dream and this folklore of...
Still applies to my Ginny Weasley Harry Potter theory, by the way, because the layers are there.
I like the folklore thing too. I think that's something that is interesting because folklore is storytelling and then we get the stories. The coastal town we wandered around had never seen a love as pure as it. They're at dinner parties. Like there's all these little like...
My Eagles t-shirt hanging from your door. Like, yeah, you get the whole picture.
Yeah, you just get those moments. And it's also interesting to me how quickly the jump isn't just like, oh, we're together, but this town has never seen a love as pure as what we have.
Pure.
Like that is
interesting word to use.
Yeah, pure is a very interesting word to use.
It reminds me of Suburban Legends, the song.
Yeah.
Because it has a moment where she jumps from this like high school situation to like, we'll be coming in our class reunion so many years later. And you're imagining this epic love.
You kiss me in a way that's going to screw me up forever. Like I kind of see that specifically, like, kiss me in a way that's going to screw me up forever. I don't like, so I won't even let myself go there. I don't like a gold rush.
But I still see this as like a high school kind of song. I think it's like one of those like I actually see it as an attainable crush, not like something that's unattainable, but something that she's having to say no, put a stop to because maybe she would get rejected. I like the insecurity kind of take to it, but also like this idea of like you wanting to feel like you have some control over the situation and saying like, well, before we get too far into this, like, let me just go ahead and say, but I'm not really into that.
I can't dare to dream about you anymore. I love that line. Like, I just love the way, can we talk about the structure of this song? I mentioned this previously. I was trying to I started thinking about the structure because I was trying to figure out where is the bridge. Is there a bridge?
I think it is that like daydream sequence at the end, in theory, where it goes into the dinner parties, and
that would be a bridge to nowhere. Then it's not. Doesn't a bridge have to take you someplace else? Again, we're not music theory experts here, so
it takes you to the ending, back to the sirens, and pulls you out of it.
I don't know.
I think something that's interesting here too, though, is again it's genderless, but because Taylor's singing it, you do often feel like she's likely singing about a man, which doesn't have to be the interpretation, but
that's how we see it.
That's kind of how we default, for better or for worse. But it makes me think of, there's this whole thing in Victorian literature in particular of, I'm going to get this wrong, and I'm sorry to my professor if I say this wrong, but the angel in the house, where it's this unrealistic female character who is perfect. Just absolutely perfect. And you get it in, Charles Dickens does it a lot. So like in David Copperfield, the woman that he ultimately ends up with is like just so calm, can manage a household, is never cross, knows the right thing to do, very moral. And you get it too in A Tale of Two Cities. And it's super fascinating if you ever read Tale of Two Cities, because Lucy Manette is like the main character. She is perfect, apparently. All the men love her. She's one of the most boring female characters I've ever read in my life. But you get this idea of like these perfect women who everyone just loves and adores. And it's a whole, but they're the angel in the house. They're actually really unrealistically written characters. That is not how women are. Even like, it doesn't matter.
It's kind of women that sing tolerate it.
Yes. But that's what's interesting is that those are fictional. And I feel like you get the same vibes here of just like, this person must be perfect. And we said folklore, but like this, whether they know this person or not, what's happening is a fictionalization and an idealization. Which is really interesting.
I think there is that recognition of the idolization. I think that's where that siren song piece really fits into this song. It's like, I recognize this for what it is. It's trap. I know it's trap.
It's a trap. Oh, it's a dream. It's a dream. I can't dare to dream about you anymore.
Or if we're going along with Jen's interpretation for a second, like maybe the comparison to the sirens is also part of that folklore. It's like maybe like the person is actually fine, but like to warn herself or to justify it to herself, she's like, don't go there. That's a siren. Beautiful siren. Absolutely flawless in so many ways. Absolutely beautiful, but it's a trap. It could be a person trying to convince themselves that this is not something you want to go in, like trying to reason something that has no reason.
Did people make a lot of money in the gold rush? Like, was it actually
I think
fruitful?
A few people struck rich.
A few people, but not most people. But most people did not.
Yeah.
The book that I read, it did kind of go over it, that the people who really walked out successful were the people who figured out how to profit on the miners.
Yeah, it was the people who got there very, very early. I think it was like all of the riches that was like really to be made actually happened within like the first few people who got there, because again, they got the gold, but then they were able to set up these systems for the people coming in and then like really take advantage of that.
Yeah. So I said, I asked that because like, and if without knowing, you hear the word gold rush and you think something positive and like, oh, we're going to make a lot of money, right? I go back to like the Bitcoin thing. Like, yeah, the people who were in early and Bitcoin was $10, like did great. And other than that, you don't really know what you're doing, or you didn't, I'm not even gonna keep talking about it.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm gonna talk about Taylor Swift and this song. Yeah, it's like I feel like she's saying, I can see that this is not going to be as good as everybody says it is going to be. So I am going to actively, I would imagine it and see what it could be if it was ideal, but know that it's not actually ever going to be what I dream of. So I'm going to almost jump in. Water's so inviting. I almost jump in, but I don't.
It's also kind of convenient that she does not have to actually engage in the challenges of a real relationship. She is imagining a perfect one. Another
Those
Victorian
are the best
book.
Relationships.
I know. So there's another Victorian novel I'm going to bring up. It's Villette by, it's one of the Bronte sisters, I'm pretty sure.
Hold on. We'll pause. I'll look it up. Hold on a second. V-A-L-E-T.
V-I-L-L-E-T-T.
V-I-L-E-T-T. Charlotte Bronte. Okay, you want to say that again?
Okay. Yes. So it reminds me of this, another Victorian reference, the book Villette by Charlotte Bronte. And so she's also the one who wrote Jane Eyre, for context, because then it was her sister who wrote Wuthering Heights. And anyways, all the three Bronte sisters were all novelists. But in
Impressive
Villette,
family.
Rest of family. But that was actually wrote like a really long paper on it. Would very much like to talk about it again at some point on this podcast. But it's an interesting story. She goes overseas to like France to be a teacher and like ends up sort of falling in love with a guy who's like not great. The Bronte sisters did not have the best taste in men, but they like have a beautiful moment and then he ends up dying. And it was something that I wrote about in my paper and talked about of like it was a convenient death because it was a relationship that was never going to work out. So they had the start, they had the chance to dream about it, but because he died, they didn't have to face the reality of everything falling apart because it was clearly going to.
It kind of reminds me of Romeo and Juliet that way, of like a very short-lived star-crossed lover, but like if it had actually worked out, would it have ever? You guys
wouldn't have liked each other.
Yeah. And I think you get that here without the death, but kind of the knowledge of this is probably not going to work out, but I still want to enjoy the admiration, the daydreaming, the beauty of this, but I'm not going to take the risk or do the work to actually get there because it's not worth it. It's a gold rush.
I want to end it on my terms before it even starts because
the whole
I
thing
just
is
know
on
it's
my
not going to go
terms.
anywhere.
Yeah.
I love that. Do we have other things that we want to add or we want to start wrapping up? Because I feel like I'm getting to my conclusion of where we're landing. I'm in two minds. Like one of the theories that we've been talking about, I think either the speaker is like has these insecurities of her own and like knows that failure is imminent and therefore is finding ways to like justify ending this relationship before it even begins and is likening this person to things like the sirens, saying I don't like a gold rush, like coming up with excuses essentially to like end it. Or I'm not like totally sold that it's not the other way. It's like either that's the speaker, the insecure take, or it's the other way where like the speaker is almost like still thinks that she is better than everybody else and is like, well, just because like I see exactly what everybody is saying, but just because everyone says you're beautiful, like I don't like a gold rush, so I'm better than that or I'm different.
I still go back to the image I have in my head is, again, this is where I come from. Walking down the street, you see someone, they look at you, and in that moment, you're like, oh my God, you have this is the whole thing that happens in that split second. Like, it's like time is suspended. And so I don't even know if there's time to think through, am I nervous about this? Do I deserve this person? Is he better than me? Am I better than him? I don't even go that far. I just go to like, this is where you play in this moment of like seeing someone across the room. Oh, here's what the whole thing would be like. What must it be like? You're beautiful. It will never be. And then like it snaps back in and you keep walking.
It's like the James Blunt interpretation, the you're beautiful.
James Blunt
I just like, I saw the movie. Like I see the movie. I see the like if we got a music video, it would be a busy city street. She'd be walking. She'd make eye contact with someone. Like everything would go in slow motion. And like this whole song would happen as they're crossing the street with like 3 paces. As the walk past quick brush, this would be the whole song. And then the end, it would like go back into regular time and keep moving. I don't know what movie I'm describing or music video that I've seen this before. So if somebody could let me know what I just described, please tell me.
I feel like that's a very New York City interpretation, and I actually
really
love that.
It comes from this whole...
It's James Blunt. It's on the subway.
Blunt.
Saw her on the subway, standing there.
Yeah, that's true. Exactly. Or I go back to her. I was like, is there a time turner involved in this song? Like there's something... I'm playing with the idea of time in this song, and maybe it's the word rush and the walk past quick brush. Like I just get the sense that this is very fast. And it's probably the word rush, but like there's no time. I don't get a sense that there's any time to really process anything other than here's what our whole life would be like. Oh, and wait a second, it could never be. Okay, keep moving, goodbye. But like you get joy out of those moments. You ever look at, oh God, on Craigslist, misconnections. They have, you guys have these? Oh God, on the New York.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Craigslist has these. I mean, do I look at those now? No, but I feel like New York Magazine used to republish them. And there are some Instagram accounts that also will publish these like misconnections of like someone you saw on the subway platform or they were in front of you in Starbucks and you just didn't get a chance to say, I think you're gorgeous. Like whatever it is, like that's just this ephemeral, very fast moment where you're going about your day-to-day life and you have like, you can feel so much in a split second and you can't even process it. But
we talked about how this song is actually like structurally really similar to Gorgeous in many ways. In some ways, at least through the lens of aestheticism, it's like, could it be like the sequel to Gorgeous? It's like you see this person who's like totally gorgeous, and then you're like, but I don't like a gold rush.
Yeah, well, and I feel like in Gorgeous, you're you're feeling the positive and negative emotions. You're just like rejecting, oh, you're beautiful. It makes me so hate you so much. There's not even time to hate anybody in this song. It is just that split second moment to me again. So if you live in New York and you feel this same way, maybe it's a New York thing.
New York.
This is a New York subway. Not even because on a subway, you're like, you have time to like sit and stare at this person. This is literally like you're walking past each other in the street.
I think I still stand by, for me, there is something nefarious about the song. And to me, it still does kind of come across as that insecurity. And you're talking about time, and I definitely see your interpretation, but I also think the line, because it fades into the gray of my day old tea, is interesting because, so to me, what it feels like is that distant crush, someone you know, someone you don't know, but there's that fear of, not even a fear of falling, it's a fear of the bone crush. And a gold rush, again, we've talked about this so many times, but also another thing is like the gold rush was either incredible success or probably your life was ruined. There wasn't a lot of middle ground. And I think that actually, I mean, that represents dating. Anytime you date someone, it's a risk. Either you're going to be together forever or it's probably going to hurt really bad, you know, like, so it's kind of like that dating is sort of a gold rush in that version of it. So to me, I think it's kind of having that crush, and it's almost a fantasizing about it, but then talking yourself out of it, of like the rejection's going to be there, the pain's going to be there. And I think that day old tea to me is like, it could have been a quick moment. It could have been someone you actually know, but I kind of feel like these different images of stories she has are over time, that like she's still thinking about it. She's still fantasizing about it, that it was a quick brush, but she's not having day old tea at a coffee shop. Probably
she needs to keep justifying. She needs to keep justifying it over and over again.
Fantasy moments and then being like, but no, I don't
day
like
old
rush.
tea is such a real thing, right? Like it's the unfancy, like mundane reality, right? Where like you just didn't clean up your tea from yesterday, so you got this day old tea sitting here. So you've got this whole vision of how perfect you are, and my Eagles t-shirt hanging from the door, and at dinner parties in the town, and then that whole vision and dream fades into the gray of this tea that's been sitting here for a day as I've been thinking about this.
You're just staring into this.
And I do think that into space. Like
I agree, that indicates like kind of like the passing of time to me too. It's like I've been thinking about this for a hot minute, and actually, Jen, like you're selling me more and more on this like insecurity thing, but I've always just wanted the speaker to be like above that.
Yeah.
I don't see her as insecure. I just think she's like, here's the dream is more satisfying than the reality. How many times have we like thought about something and wanted it so badly, and then you get it and you're like, oh, okay. Like sometimes it's more fun to dream about something and to think about it than it is to actually get it.
Yeah, I think it just, to me, is kind of if this person was really confident and felt really good about themselves, they might think that they could be the one that strikes gold. And it's the bone crush is what really gets me, that the bone crush is not oh, this didn't work out. Bone crush is like,
it's devastating.
You don't come back from bone crush, you know. I think that's just a line that like really sticks in my head, as like there's some fear here. Maybe it's not insecurity, maybe there's other reason, but there's fear.
I think, what if like in addition to fear, it's like logic. It's like you think that you may not be good enough. I don't know. I'm also trying to like navigate, because I didn't really see like the insecurity as much, but I definitely see the justification. It's like all of the things that she's saying are just to justify saying no, because otherwise it's so tempting. So there's definitely an element of logic. It's almost like she's clever enough to like not jump into this, or she's trying to just logic her way out of falling.
Well, falling feels like flying till the bone crush. It feels good until you realize it's not.
That's a very rationale thought.
Right. Like everything seems wonderful until all of a sudden it's awful. And so that's what she is trying to avoid. Things look inviting, even though you see something sinking. You see it not good. Like, but it looks inviting. I almost jump in. Like you're on the precipice of all of these things that they're describing. It's like you're on the precipice of something, and it's either going to be good or it can be really bad. And she's like, you know what? Not worth it.
I'm going to say no. I'm going to say no first.
I'm going to stay on my couch with my day old tea and my cats and like just sit here dreaming, and I'm okay with that.
But man, is he beautiful. But I'm going to say no. You know, but he's so nice.
We don't know if he's nice. We just know that he's beautiful.
It's just really pretty.
And he's got contrarian shit that she likes to call out. What must it be like? I don't know. I still love, the two things I wrote down were, is there a bridge? And I don't really think we know, but can our boy Jack call us and let us know, is there a bridge? Which of these is the bridge? If there's not a bridge.
Lost
yeah, there's the lost bridge. And what does it mean that there's a lost bridge? And the other thing I wrote down was, is this song positive? Because, I'm obsessed with
positive. Are we about to do the happy or sad? Yeah.
No,
no.
It's
not happy or sad.
But those were just the two things. And I don't think to the whatever episode that was, like, it doesn't need to be binary. It doesn't need to be happy or sad. But, like, I love this song. I love the feeling of this song. It is beautiful and, like, ethereal almost. That doesn't mean it's a happy or positive song.
I mean, I always did see it as, like, taking control and reclaiming some control in some way. So in that sense, I think it's, like, at least it's, like, on her terms.
Yes.
Or she is trying to justify something on her terms. And so I think in that sense, it is, like,
I don't know. Crushes are fun. If it's a crush that you never intend to have go anywhere so that it can't end badly, you're like, this is fun. It's a fun feeling. I'm now kind
of imagining like the Hey Steven Taylor, who is like the nerdy kind of smart
this
girl.
This is the grown up Hey Steven.
Is imagining a whole thing and then is like, but we're not actually going to.
But like, I'm not that dumb, and I know that this could actually turn bad. So let me just enjoy the fun, lighthearted emotion and the imagining and the dreaming, and let somebody else deal with your bullshit.
I think that's totally true. I think the agency here is really key. I think
there's that AP analysis. It's not me talking about someone's bullshit.
I think there's always an element though. If you want a long-term partner, which not everyone does, which is fine. But if you do eventually have to take the leap. You have to risk the bone crush.
But not for this one. This one didn't seem like it was worth it.
This person doesn't seem like it was worth it.
And it doesn't have to be the one that everyone else is into.
Yes.
It's like maybe there's something suspect about the fact that everyone is after this person.
Right. It doesn't have to be this one. But I think the fear that I read underlying the surface is kind of a like, well, it's not going to be this one. But I still just get a sense of like, eventually I might have to figure this out though. Like if I want to be with someone, I have to be willing to take that risk.
I think there is something to like, don't chase after somebody that like makes you so desperate and turns to goo and mush and paralyzes. I don't know, like some level of like equality in who you're pursuing, like this does feel really like kind of lopsided in that she feels like she's being lured into these dangerous waters and has no control or no sense of she like loses all her chill when she's around this person.
See, that's where I get the insecurity though, because I think she thinks it's lopsided.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't read into this song as much as you guys do.
And like it could be I feel like that's all of our listeners who are like
they're like, this is overcomplicated, I'm done, I checked out 30 minutes ago.
Yeah, no, I don't know if it has to be insecurity, but it's like it's definitely like lopsided, whereas it's like this is why I'm saying no, like clearly this should not be because it's maybe not balanced enough.
Yeah, well, we can wrap up with this unless we keep talking, which might also happen. But to kind of bring it back to the AP thing too, I think that's where, and we talked about who the speaker is, but this song is first person point of view. And so it's incredibly limited. All we know about this other person and about the speaker is coming from the speaker. And I think that's why there's so many interpretations too. It's very limited. We're not getting a ton of context, but it also means anything she is describing of the other person, and like we said, like she thinks everybody wants that person. We don't know if that's true. She thinks that this person's beautiful. We don't know if everyone else agrees. It's a limited point of view, which is what makes it, all of these interpretations are pretty valid. Like we have evidence, they all work, but it's the limitation of the speaker that allows us to have those interpretations.
It's Jenny's song.
I would like to, at this moment, give a quick shout out to my 7th grade language arts teacher, Miss Vizethan, who said, don't go for the good looking boys that everyone goes after. They're going to be bald soon. Go for the boyish ones, she said.
That's I mean, I love that you remember
how I met my husband.
7th grade. Did you meet him in 7th grade?
No, I met him in 10th grade, but it was in my head.
See, English teachers, they have a lot of things to give us that are not just how to interpret a song.
I love the idea that you tell your husband, they're like, oh, I'm so glad I took the advice to not go after the handsome boys. I'm really glad.
Well, her whole point was the boyish ones are the ones that grow up into like really good looking men. And I think
Neville Longbottom
has definitely happened with my husband.
Neville.
Anyways, on that note.
On the Neville Longbottom note. That's all we have for you today. Thanks for going on this journey with us.